heard the knocking just after midnight, and it was steady, slow, and deliberate, like someone who knew exactly how long to wait between each hit. I stayed on the couch and kept my eyes on the TV, pretending I didn't hear it while counting the seconds between each knock. I lived alone in a small ground-floor apartment at the end of a quiet street, and no one ever visited me unannounced. The knocking continued for nearly a full minute, and then it suddenly stopped without any sound of footsteps leaving. I muted the TV and sat still, listening carefully for movement outside my door, but the hallway remained completely silent. I told myself it was probably someone at the wrong apartment, and I waited another minute before standing up. I walked slowly toward the window next to the front door, careful not to make noise, and I leaned slightly to look through the curtain. The parking lot outside was empty, and there was no one standing near my door or walking away. I felt uneasy, but tried to stay logical. So I stepped back and checked the door lock to make sure it was fully secured. The deadbolt was in place, and I even pushed the handle twice to confirm it wouldn't open. I returned to the couch, but didn't unmute the TV, and instead I listened again for any sound in the hallway. That's when I heard a soft scrape, not from outside, but from somewhere deeper inside the apartment near the kitchen area. I froze in place and slowly turned my head toward the dark hallway that led to the kitchen and bathroom. I stood up again and grabbed my phone, holding it tightly while taking slow steps toward the hallway entrance. The lights were off in the kitchen, and the only illumination came from the dim glow of the living room behind me. I called out a simple hello in a low voice, expecting no response, but hoping to scare off anyone who might be there. There was no answer, but I heard another small sound, like something lightly touching the floor and then stopping. I took another step forward and reached for the wall switch, turning on the kitchen light in one quick motion. The kitchen looked normal at first glance, with nothing out of place and no one visible near the counters or the sink. I stepped fully into the kitchen and checked behind the fridge and near the small storage area, finding nothing unusual. I told myself I was overreacting, and I started to relax just slightly as I turned back toward the living room. As I walked back, I noticed that the front door I had locked earlier was now slightly open, just enough to show a thin line of darkness from the hallway outside. I stopped immediately and stared at the door, knowing I had checked it myself only minutes ago. I walked toward it slowly, my grip tightening on my phone as I reached out and pushed it closed again. I locked it carefully, turning the deadbolt twice this time, and I stepped back while keeping my eyes fixed on it. That's when I heard a quiet movement behind me again, closer this time, coming from inside my bedroom. I turned around quickly and saw my bedroom door, which I clearly remembered leaving open earlier, now halfway closed. I stood there for several seconds, trying to understand how that door could have moved without any draft or reason. I moved toward it slowly, each step measured, and I reached out to push it open. The room looked empty at first, with my bed untouched and the window still closed. I stepped inside and checked behind the door, then inside the closet, finding nothing and no one. I let out a small breath and turned back toward the living room, convinced I had just imagined everything. As I stepped out of the bedroom, I heard a sudden knock again, but this time it came from directly behind me inside the apartment. I turned around instantly and saw that the closet door I had just checked was now slightly open again. That's when I thought it was over. I had no idea what was about to happen next. I stared at the closet door for a few seconds, and then it slowly moved another inch, as if someone inside had just shifted their weight. I stepped backward into the hallway, keeping my eyes fixed on the narrow opening while my hand tightened around my phone. I said, "Who's there?" in a louder voice, but there was no answer, only the faint sound of breathing coming from inside the closet. I rushed forward and pulled the door open in one quick motion, and for a split second, I saw a man crouched low with his face turned away from me. I screamed and jumped back, but before I could run, he lunged forward and grabbed my arm with a strong grip. I twisted away and managed to break free, running into the living room while he stumbled behind me. I grabbed a heavy lamp from the side table and swung it toward him as he entered the room, forcing him to step back. He didn't speak at all, and his face remained expressionless as he watched me move toward the front door. I ran to the door and tried to unlock it, but my hands shook so much that I dropped my phone onto the floor. He moved closer again, slow but steady, blocking my path before I could open the door. I backed away toward the kitchen, holding the lamp in front of me while keeping distance between us. He stepped forward again, and this time he reached out quickly and knocked the lamp out of my hands. It hit the floor with a loud crash, leaving me defenseless as I stumbled backward into the kitchen counter. I grabbed a kitchen knife from the counter and pointed it at him, warning him to stay back. He paused for a second, then stepped forward again without hesitation, ignoring the blade completely. I swung the knife toward him, cutting across his arm, but he barely reacted as he continued moving closer. He grabbed my wrist and forced my hand down, causing the knife to fall and slide across the floor. I struggled to pull away, but his grip tightened as he pushed me against the counter. I managed to kick him hard in the leg, creating enough space to slip free and run toward the bedroom again. I slammed the door behind me and pushed a chair against it, breathing fast while listening for his footsteps outside. There was silence for a few seconds, and then I heard the handle slowly turning as he tested the door. The chair held in place, and I backed away toward the window, looking for a way out. I tried to open the window, but it was stuck, and I wasted precious seconds trying to force it upward. The pressure on the door increased, and I heard the wood begin to crack as he pushed harder from the other side. I grabbed anything I could find in the room to block the door further, but the space was too small and the force too strong. The door suddenly gave way, breaking open as he pushed through and stepped into the room again. I backed into the corner with nowhere left to go. As he walked toward me without stopping, he reached out again, and this time there was no space or object left to protect me. The next morning, my neighbor found the front door slightly open and the apartment completely silent, with no sign of forced entry from outside. Inside the bedroom, the chair was broken, the window still locked, and the closet door standing wide open. My phone was found on the floor near the entrance, still recording audio from the moment I dropped it, capturing every sound from the knocking to the final struggle. The recording ended with a long silence, followed by a single movement inside the apartment that no one could explain. One last question: if you were in her place at that moment, would you have done the same? Be honest. What does her choice deserve out of 10? Subscribe now. The best story is coming next.